WCBS 880 News. The People.
Monday in the morning at News Radio 88 WCBS.
Dave Flanders and WCBS News Radio 88 Mobile Unit number 1.
The Moments.
Reggie Jackson has hit his third home run of the game.
An unidentified man who is apparently walking on a tightrope between the towers of the World Trade Center.
The events that shaped our lives.
All I can tell you is there were severe electrical storms to the north, just prior to the blackout here.
Strike Schmike, enough already.
The anxiety is setting in about how I'm going to get home, and I haven't gotten to work yet.
Here's Wayne Cabot, Paul Murnane, and Brigitte Quinn.
It's a rare thing to have a New York politician who actually understands how the radio works and what it's like to be on the radio and the challenges of radio. But we were lucky to have that with the former governor of New York, David Paterson, on the line.
Governor Paterson, wow, it's great to have you back on the radio again. It's been a little while, and I just remember having spoken with you about what a connection this particular radio station has to you. I love that story. Thanks for coming on with us. It means the world.
Well, it's as I was growing up in Long Island, and I couldn't read the newspaper because I'm legally blind, and the television had not embraced the news the way it has today. This was really my interest at first when WINS started in 1965. Then News Radio 88 in 1967, which I liked more because, first of all, I like to hear the news without hearing a teletype behind it. And secondly, because I just thought that the coverage was more extensive. And I remember in 1968, and I believe the newsman was Palmer Payne, he delivered the message that Martin Luther King had been murdered in Tennessee. And just, big moments where my first understanding of it came from listening to this station. I'm really sorry that this is going away.
Yeah, we are too. And I know how meaningful it was to all of us when you became governor of New York, and suddenly we had the inside track. That was nice. How you doing, by the way? How you doing? Because we think about you a lot. We really do. And we revere our listeners, and there's so many over the years, and you probably had the most success of any of them. And I hear you on the radio still. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but I hear you on the radio still. You got your opinions. It's an interesting time in American history, and it's getting more and more difficult, isn't it, in this news environment to get real information out?
It really is, and I think that was what the standard of when all news stations first came on was not only to report the news, but to report it accurately and not to jump to conclusions sometimes as you see in the print media. And that's why I so appreciated listening to the station. I remember the first day prior to the station coming on, they had a psychiatrist whose name was Dr. Rose Franzblau. And she used to do pieces on 88. So then they incorporated her into the whole news channel, news station. But that didn't last too long. And they had another daily feature called Spectrum. And it would come on 9 times, and different reporters and people of note would comment and talk about things going on in society. So there was really a tremendous amount of creativity at the station that I always appreciated.
I thought WCBS sounded important, but you raise an important point too, Governor, that it was really a cast of thousands here. You could turn on this radio station, and maybe that's what made it sound important, that there were so many people involved in putting it together.
Oh, absolutely. And, Irene Cornell and so, some of the other news people, and that they would go right in the thick of the fire. Now, I remember one time with you, Paul, when they had this event called the Million Youth March, and they flew a helicopter over it, and it upset the crowd, and they all started running for cover. And as I'm running for cover, I saw you, and we did an interview while we were both fleeing the scene.
I remember that, Governor. I remember that.
Governor David Paterson, you remember the name Bill Than, don't you?
Yes.
Of course,
yes.
A mainstay on WCBS. And I'd like to, Governor, thank you for coming on with us, and I'm going to gift you and all of us with that marvelous voice once again. We heard from his daughter, Robin, just yesterday, and she said, I hope I'll be hearing my dad's voice. Well, Here's a classic Bill Fein on WCBS, and wait till you hear how quick the helicopter traffic reporter is, Lou Timelot, when Bill makes a rare gaffe. Here we go.
U.S. Navy has just announced that it has suspended dumping of obsolete munitions in the oceans until all alternative methods of disposal have been studied. And I just got myself in deep trouble with the Musicians Union. Here's Lou Timelot.
Well, Bill, I thought for a minute we had heard the last of Hoagie Carmichael, but I was glad we're just losing some munitions.
As they say, that's a keeper, that one.
Oh, I love that. Hoagie Carmichael reference on WCBS at 12:08.
Here's Tom O'Hanlon with the traffic story, Tom.
You know, that brings back a fun memory. When I was in college, a friend got me a ride in the WCBS traffic helicopter with Lou, and we flew around the Empire State Building antenna. Among other things, we even buzzed Fordham when I was a Fordham student. Well, checking out what's going on in Westchester, we are stacked up on 287 on the westbound side from the Sprain Parkway to the Tappan Zee Bridge. They're cleaning up that earlier car fire on the bridge. Now, it looks pretty good once you're on the span. If you go into Rockland, it is better crossing and getting up into the thruway in Rockland. Then in Westchester on the Cross County Parkway, that is loaded up on the westbound side if you're trying to get over into the Sawmill. Not too bad on 95 in Connecticut. If you're heading up through Greenwich and Stamford, you're hitting the brakes around Stamford, as we often do. Same thing on the southbound side in Norwalk, and the southbound side of the Merritt looks pretty busy into New Canaan. In Long Island, we are looking at the ride on the LIE. We're pretty good. Now, the Northern State and the LIE both stop and go into Queens, where there's plenty of traffic waiting for you on the Cross Island. And boy, is it heavy up the Whitestone Bridge. If you're trying to go to the Bronx, well, the Throgs Neck will be a little bit better, but boy, you're going to pay for it with that Whitestone Expressway. Not too good. 30 in at the GWB, just about 5 to 10 at the tunnels. The tunnels about 10 each to New Jersey. And I'm Tom O'Hanlon in the WCBS Traffic Center.
News is at the anchor desk, Jim Donnelly and Robert Vaughn. Weather is
what I report on. I'm Craig Allen.
And still reporting on it right now in the WCBS Weather Center. Hello, Craig Allen.
This is the Weather Center right here, right now. And
wherever you are.
Wherever I am. And here's the interesting thing. It's 88 degrees right now, and we are plus or minus 5 degrees of that. So in honor of Harvey Nagler, that is the weather guarantee for today. We're going for a high of 88. That means that if I get that, I mean, really, 5 degrees either side. Thank you so much for that, Harvey. I mean, he's over there in the corner. He's like, yeah, I remember that. It was great.
You know what? It worked. We had a bin.
You better believe it.
Bin of postcards we got. A massive bin of postcards.
Right.
People were all into that contest.
You better believe it. And you know what we spoke about earlier this morning, and I'll do it later. We never had a jingle for weather, correct?
Great. Are you going to sing one?
No, absolutely not. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that today is going to be sunny. It'll be up there in the 70s, despite the weather guarantee. We don't have $1,000 to give out right now anyway, so it doesn't matter.
The entire radio industry doesn't have $1,000.
That's right. As for tomorrow, look for another delightful day coming up, and each day is going to get warmer as we get on into the upcoming weekend. Craig Allen, WCBS Weather Center.
One of my best friends in the whole world is on with us right now on the telephone, I understand, from, I guess it's Santa Fe, New Mexico. Is that where you are now, Mikey?
Rio Rancho, down the road from Santa Fe.
This is Michael Kahn, who was not on the air at WCBS, but was probably the heart and soul of this radio station, in my opinion, for a good long time in the 1980s and 1990s, who knows where the bodies are buried, and has seen people come and go, including himself, as a matter of fact. Hey, yes. Michael, I got to say, you are one of my best friends in the whole world, and I wanted you to come on and tell the story, because we just mentioned Bill Fein a minute ago, who we worked with, and you have a great story about coming in from Rockland County for your early morning writing shift.
Well, Bill, of course, had the voice of God, and one morning back, I guess it was in the early 90s, something had happened, and WCBS was airing emergency broadcast system activations. There were always tests, but for some reason we started running activations, which of course nobody who grew up in New York had ever heard this. Anyway, it's about 4:45 one morning. I'm in my apartment in White Plains getting ready to walk to the train station. I put on WCBS on my Walkman, and the first thing I hear out of the headphones is Bill Fan announcing, "This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test," followed by that tone. And I thought for sure this was the end of the world, or the Russians were marching down the thruway, or whatever it was. And it turned out, of course, it was raining on Long Island or something. But it was classic Bill Fan. In fact, in 2007, the Daily News did the little survey of readers about their all-time favorite DJ lineups. And I wrote into David Hinckley, and I submitted, instead of Dan Ingram or Ron Lundy, I said, how about Pat and Ben and Lou and Jim and some of the classics on WCBS. And I was quoted in that article as saying that when the end of the world comes, I want to hear it on WCBS from Bill Fan.
He had that voice of God.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, before you run, the legacy of WCBS, you're a wordsmith. You wrote for the Associated Press, for CBS, CBS Network. Tell us about that. UPI and probably a few other places that still owe you money. Tell us about the legacy of WCBS.
Well, I hope to collect that AP pension one day. The legacy of WCBS... I've heard a lot this morning about the great voices, John Wydra, Harvey Houtman, Bob Glenn, so many people, a lot of people behind the scenes who, of course, are not mentioned. I would just like to quickly mention my late friend Dick Spencer, who was a great influence to me when I worked at 88, taught me how to run a news desk. Beyond that, the legacy is just incredible. The station itself, it's the station where you talk about the end of the world. Orson Welles broadcast the War of the Worlds on WCBS. It was the station my dad always had on in the car, in the office, in the house. It was where I wanted to work as a kid. You and I, Wayne, we were the kids who listened to Pat and Ben instead of Dan Ingram in the afternoon. This station, the way this station will be missed, cannot be understated.
You mentioned Dick Spencer, the morning producer here at WCBS, who had a wonderful test that he would run in his mind to see if a story was relevant and interesting. And he would talk about this is what Mrs. Spencer wanted to hear. And I was, we decided we were going to discover more lifestyle stories. And it was a slow news morning. And I was sent to cover, I kid you not, they were going to have a bunch of brides in bridal gowns, and they had a huge wedding cake in the middle of Times Square. And the brides were going to jump in, and there was a prize somewhere in the cake. And if they won the prize, they won the prize. But there was going to be this big wrestling match and a cake in the middle of morning drive. So I got there. I do the 6 a.m. I do the 6 a.m. report. It is 7 a.m. I'm 7 a.m. It's going to happen, this event, at like 9 o'clock or something. So finally it happens. In the meantime, I had discovered that it wasn't just a real cake. It was actually largely Crisco. So this thing now is turning into a greased wrestling match. Wrestling match in the middle of Times Square at 9 o'clock in the morning. They blow the whistle. The brides jump in. My phone rings, and it's Dick Spencer, and he says, Mrs. Spencer wants to know how the greasy wrestling match is going. He had that. That was his way. That was his way. He was a wonderful morning producer, and I think the Mrs. Spencer test was the thing that really worked, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. There's no question. Dick understood about talking to the audience, not at the audience. He was really very good at that. Excellent.
I'm so glad we mentioned him, because there are so many names that we want to make sure that we mention as WCBS goes away. And Michael, I'm so glad that we mentioned your name, and we want to thank all the writers and the producers and the wonderful, the force of the Writers Guild at WCBS, and thank you all for your work.
Well, it was a pleasure. It was a thrill of my life. And boys, I just can I do one thing before I go?
Sure.
Can I give the legal ID? Because I never did it, and I'll never get the chance again.
Go right ahead.
WCBS, New York.
Well done, Michael. You're hired for the next day and a half. Hey, you mentioned Bob Glenn. Your ID was a whole hell of a lot better than his ID. You ready for this?
13 minutes before 7 o'clock on WCBS News Radio 88, your station for news and information in New York, New Jersey, and Kentucky.
On On Michael's story about the Russians coming down the thruway, they would have been easier to take Kentucky. If they'd taken the thruway and got to the Tappan Zee, they would have said, forget it, they can keep it.
Tom O'Hanlon, any sign of Russians on the thruway?
Well, let's see. Gosh, I hope not. No sign. Looks like we're clear so far, but we'll keep an eye on it. Well, that thruway's doing okay. We're looking at the Rockland County side of the Tappan Zee Bridge, and you're good. Now, it's been a real workout trying to get to Rockland by way of the Tappan Zee. Not the bridge itself so much now, but they cleaned up that car fire from earlier and had to do some work. So that means the westbound side of 287, we're still packed pretty tight from the Sprain on over. In Connecticut, going up 95, not bad at all. Stop and go in the southbound side in Norwalk, and the Merritt's pretty slow in New Canaan. Long Island, the LIE in the northern state, are busy into Queens. Now, the Cross Island Parkway still has stop and go in both directions, up and down between the bridges and the LIE. It is better than it was. The Clearview northbound, you're slow. The Whitestone, you're even slower up into the Whitestone Bridge. That does not look good. Well, what a parking lot the Cross Bronx Expressway is on the westbound side. We have about a 40-minute delay to the GWB. And speaking of parking lots, the Major Deegan on the northbound side from the Bruckner to the Cross Bronx is jammed, and on the southbound side from around 230th. So if you're heading into the city at the GWB, let's call it about 25 or so on the way in either deck. The Lincoln and the Holland will cost you about 10 into the city. Really not too bad if you're heading back for New Jersey. I'm Tom O'Hanlon in the WCBS Traffic Center.
Thank you, Tom. Between Craig Allen and Todd Glickman, there's just about 100 years of radio weather experience here on WCBS, and we are gifted to have Todd here right now giving us an actual forecast, or are you stealing it from AccuWeather?
Whatever Craig had in front of him 10 minutes ago. But it turns out that Craig and I together have 88 years on WCBS, and that is the actual number. We are blessed. So how about this? Blessed with the weather. Bright sunshine, some clouds today. 77. Now let's make it near 88. That's close enough. Clear and comfortable tonight. Really nice overnight. 63 in town, 50s in the suburbs. Another beautiful day tomorrow. Scattered clouds, temperatures near 80. Sunday, warm, a little bit more humid. Temperatures will be in the mid-80s. And Monday, it's going to be nice as well, but you won't be able to hear it here on WCBS, and we will miss you dearly.
I hope they do the weather. I hope they mention it once in a while. But you know what? It's up to them. It's their station, right? Yeah. It's great to have you. You know, we have such a legendary list of meteorologists, and you and Craig are the brightest stars because you're the names that have come up all the time.
Well, thank you, guys. And I just want to add to what Michael Kahn said. The thing that I remember most about coming into this radio station, whether it was in person or on the phone or down the line, no matter who was on the air or who was off the air behind the scenes, it was the same because we were one WCBS family. It was consistent. It was the best. And that's what I'll remember most about WCBS.
Thank you, Todd.
Amen to that.
Hey, you know what I got over here? Speaking of weather people, you want to hear a little Gordon Barnes and Jerry Nachman from 1975?
Sure.
Probably doing what everyone would expect WCBS to do. They're in the middle of a blizzard and they're talking about it.
For the rest of today, cloudy skies, gusty winds out of the northeast, and snow, which will be moderate at times, total accumulations of 3 to 5 inches. However, there's a pretty good chance in some areas that those amounts will be higher than the 3 to 5, and temperatures will be holding steady and in the 20s. Currently, the airports are reporting moderate snow, and of course, whether or not that's affecting travel, I'll ask Jerry about that in just a moment. But the center of the storm now seems to be right around Norfolk, Virginia, and it's still trying to get organized. So this moderate to heavy snow that we are currently experiencing can be around for another few hours and then tapering off to a light snow by mid or late afternoon and then tapering off to flurries later on tonight. Jerry Nachman, have you got any reports from the airports?
Earlier this morning, Gordon, they were saying that they were below visible minimums, and I expect by this time we're starting to have delays on takeoffs and landings as soon as we know that for certain. Here's something. All Eastern Airlines shuttle flights to and from Washington and Boston have been canceled through 1 o'clock. So if you planned on shuttling via Eastern to Washington and Boston and between now and 1 o'clock, you're not going to be able to do it.
Isn't that radio? That's WCBS radio. Something happened instantly and it was on the air that fast.
No Eastern Airlines? No Pan Am?
Can you imagine? Well, anyway, Jerry Nachman there with Gordon Barnes, WCBS, 1975.
While we're on a weather jag here, I want to bring in just plain Bob Harris in the WCBS Weather Center. You recall the controversy, right? He was on the air, meteorologist Dr. Bob Harris.
He called
Turns out he
himself
wasn't
doctor.
a meteorologist or a doctor. I don't even think his name was Bob, to tell you the truth. But he was phenomenal. He was so good and so smart. I still recall the Daily News headline when he was outed as not having that degree in geophysics at Columbia University. And the Daily News headline said, "Forecasters' lack of degrees raises temperatures." Anyway, here's Bob Harris on WCBS with Jim Donald.
It's between 59 and 64, and Friday, hazy sunshine, a bit of Indian summer again. Temperatures in the upper 60s on Friday. Right now, clear, 53 degrees at WCBS.
Okay, time to call the airline so they can put me on hold. Maybe play me a little tune. Hey, what am I going to do with all the time they're saving me? I mean, this is New York. I'm not supposed to have all this time.
You don't. It's a minute to 7.
Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone?
Amen, Joni, right?
Yeah.
Truer words never spoken. Everything is an exit anthem musically, you know, and that's what we've been going through since we got the news about our station.
I just want to really thank, because it's going to take us both, Paul, and everybody out there in the newsroom, days and days to respond to the literally thousands of emails and even letters, little snail mail letters, and phone calls in the newsroom.
Yeah.
The phone, I'm not joking. Yesterday I was out there because I did the modern-day equivalent of getting the huge cardboard box to get my stuff, and the modern-day equivalent is a flash drive, and I'm taking all these files, and I heard this noise, and it was the phone ringing, and nobody was picking up. I looked behind me, and the entire newsroom was empty because there was a Writers Guild meeting to discuss whatever they have to go through. So I picked up the phone, and it was somebody saying, "I just want to say I've been listening for 35 years, and how much you've meant to me." And then I thanked them and hung up, and then the phone rang again. "I just want to tell you I've been listening for 26 years, how much you've meant to me," and the phone hasn't stopped.
And I've decided my first day, not being at WCBS, I'm going to try and answer all of the messages that I've received just personally, so I have something to do. Tim Sheld, you were famous for returning every single email and every single phone call, every complaint you dealt with, and you dealt with it personally. I thought your head was going to explode in there.
Well, if I can tell an off-color story, Wayne, because you know that I don't do that.
Love it. It's
often.
About time. We've waited years for this.
I was so angry at a listener email that I got one year, and I don't even remember what it was about, and I sat and rewrote that email. Sean's looking at me because he knows that I used to do that. I would pick up the phone. The newsroom would say, "There's a listener on the phone," and they knew that I would like to talk to them. And it wasn't a challenge. It was these people cared enough to find our number and call us. I was working on this complaint email response, and then I'm about to hit send, and I looked at the email, and it was gaspasser31 at AOL.com, and I'm thinking...
Wayne's response is priceless.
Wayne's like, "Does that mean there were 30 other gas passers?"
Well, a few of them might have sat in Paul's anchor chair. I've been hearing for years.
You know,
about
Google's right next door, and the guys in the Gmail
I
department right now are saying, "Listen, we've got to get these guys out of the system."
Can I just say one thing, just because I heard you talking and I wanted to pick up the headphones and say, I don't know if you heard the show that WNYC did yesterday or the day before. Did you hear that?
No.
We've been busy.
WNYC did a half-hour segment on the loss of WCBS, and Jerry Barmash, who is a friend of all of ours in the media and is a talented broadcaster and now an author who has written about TV anchors and has a terrific book out there. Jerry came in the studio and did a half-hour show with Allison Stewart. I apologize if I got her name wrong. They did a half an hour, and they took calls. They took calls from listeners on WNYC, who's a neighbor around the corner, right, about the loss of WCBS in the market, and the heartfelt phone calls that were on that radio station about this radio station really stuck me.
Yeah.
I sat and listened to it. It was a half an hour, and it was what Harvey was saying, that we do what we do. We did what we did without thought who's listening on the other end. And now we're hearing from all the people that were listening on the other end about how important we were for what they did. And that's not a self-important comment.
Yeah.
We're just hearing people say that you meant so much and your loss is going to mean so much to us.
Well, you understand that what's significant about this is Had we just sort of withered on the vine and atrophied and maybe, well, we'll do news in the morning and then maybe do some talk in the middle of the day and maybe do some sports later, and faded away, we would have been like a lot of other once great stations that faded. Instead, it's being removed at a point when it's at its peak, when people still love, revere, remember, need, use the radio station. So there's something missing. There's now a void. And as Joni Mitchell said, you don't know what you got till it's gone, and now we know it's going to be gone, and we feel it.
I worry that future generations are going to look at the little piece of glass in their hand and the text on a screen, that one-dimensional thing, and think that's the news. We did an interview the other day, Wayne, and I said, the news is not a push notification. It's not.
Yes, but a push notification can get you to what you want from the news, and that's really the future.
But you know what? When the rain was coming down the other day, I had so many.
Don't disagree.
Because I have them from from my various
Gas
sources.
Passer. You don't know if Gas Passer is sending it. That's the beauty of the brand, is that when somebody sees something from a WCBS, you can bank on it. When there's a plane down in the Hudson, if it's Joe at Joe33 on Twitter, there's a plane down. You don't know that that's true, but when you see it from WCBS, you're like, oh my God, there's a plane down in the Hudson.
I need the human voice. I need someone telling it to me as well. I understand the importance of the push notification and that, but that does not replace a human voice telling you.
Can I say one other thing? And I don't know if it's been brought up today, and it was something that I saw Roxanne Geyer, or Geyer, as we like to call her, who's here. It's just so lovely to see some of these people. But she posted something the other day that made me think about how cutting edge we actually had been at a certain point in time on the digital end, and that it's a shame that that for a zillion reasons it wasn't followed through. But this may have been the first radio station that ever streamed a signal, and it was because Barry Siegfried built a system that allowed, when the push of a button played a commercial on the radio station, that same push of the button simultaneously played a secondary commercial, because there was a rights issue. If you had a commercial on the radio station, you couldn't play it online then because you didn't have the rights to, but Barry invented a way to do it. The other thing that we did is we had a second stream for this radio station. When something was going on, like the Democratic Convention, and you wanted to hear a C-SPAN-like broadcast on the radio, we had a second stream that allowed people to hear that while the radio station didn't have to interrupt what we were doing on a regular basis. We had one of the first Twitter accounts for a news organization, one of the first YouTube accounts. So
you got us all certified with the blue check mark, and suddenly my kids and their friends thought I was important.
It's just the tribute to the people who worked at the radio station, many of the people out in the newsroom right now, and everybody should walk away on this day feeling super, super proud of the role that they all played in this.
More than just the headlines, WCBS News 88.
We now return to WCBS 880 News. The people, the moments, the events that shaped our lives.
One of the amazing things about this radio station over the years is that we've had everybody on the air from Malcolm X back in the 1960s to every mayor and governor and senator, and really anybody who's been making news. And do we have somebody right now, Paul?
I believe we have the mayor of New York City on the line, Mayor Eric Adams. We appreciate your time because, as I've often said, you're busier than we are. And thank you so much. Can you tell us about this radio station and what it means to you and its departure to New York City?
When you think about 57 years, and many of those years was part of my life back in the days when I was with 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care, the Guardian Association, State Senator, Borough President, you were always willing to hear what news really impacted our city. And it is really a great loss to us. And I just really want to thank you to allow me throughout my advocacy to have a way to communicate with your listeners and everyday New Yorkers. 880 is really imprinted in my brain because I used to see those microphones at all of the press conferences throughout the years. And to all of you, I wish you the best of luck.
Hey, Mayor Adams, when I started listening to this radio station, Ed Koch was the mayor. Actually, no, I think Abe Beam was the mayor. And then it was Ed Koch, and on and on. And since we're all focused on this radio station and our experiences, I want to turn the tables on to you for a second here. And I want to ask you a very basic question. What's it like to be the mayor of New York City?
You have to pitch yourself every day. The weight of the city and your ability to impact the lives of New Yorkers, to make us safer, to bring jobs here, tourism, to make sure our children are prepared for tomorrow. You know, when you think about it, people often ask, hey, isn't this a hard job to do? You're always hearing everyone's concern. And I just think that it's the greatest city on the globe. And if you could help the greatest people on the globe, New York is, you have to just thank God that you're given the opportunity to do so. And I wake up every day with the same level of excitement that I had, believe it or not, when I was sworn in to be a police officer. I love wearing our uniform for 22 years, and I love wearing the role of mayor for the time that I'm the mayor of this great city.
You're on social media. The city agencies are on social media. You're on television constantly. But isn't radio an important part of getting out the word when you're the mayor of New York and you're sitting behind that desk?
Yes, and think about it. Let's think about the images of yesteryears, how families used to sit around the radio and hear Roosevelt either read the comics or listen to our favorite shows. There was something special about radio. And it's still here today. When you are able to hear as you're driving into work or as you are sitting down at your office, radio plays such an important role that, you know, even to host a radio program that I do once a month, people stop me all the time and say, I hear you on radio. Yes, we have social media. Yes, we have Instagram, Facebook, and all that other stuff. But nothing beats hearing the human voice come across the air, a box that we still don't know how we're able to hear that sound, but we enjoy it so much. And you guys did it for 57 years. Kudos to you.
The mayor has a good point. I have no idea how radio works. Never mind television. Wait a minute. We're looking at the air. How are these noises and sounds and images going through the air and not hurting us? I never understood that. Mayor Eric Adams, thank you very much for coming on with us. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. Good luck to you, your next step and your next venture.
Thank you, Mayor Eric Adams. Don't you wish we had a few more days, because the mayors went to Chicago to the Democratic National Convention, and the reporters at City Hall were told you can't ask questions about a political issue like that, and they, as one would predict, went absolutely nuts. And we wish we had a few more days to cover the mayor swatting away all the reporters trying to ask him about political questions. It's just, I'm going to miss the eruption of the moment from the Blue Room and from what we used to call the Room 9 folks, the reporters that cover City Hall.
What was the word on Ed Koch back in the day? They said that he never had a no comment. No, there was a better line than that.
Something like that. Yeah, but I have been holding the WCBS microphone and have seen politicians bulldoze their way across a crowded room to get to our microphone.
We had Chuck Schumer on the air. I had him on one night. He was then a congressman.
Yeah.
And he was in D.C. because, as I recall, there was a State of the State, or excuse me, State of the Union speech. Right. And he wanted the congressman to come on and give his thoughts about it. Yeah. And as Congressman Schumer was on with me at about 11 o'clock or 11:30 at night, he became distracted, and he was uncharacteristically kind of lost. And I said, and I heard some noise in the background, and I said, Congressman, is everything okay? And he said, well, there's actually a television camera that wants to interview me. And I said, okay, you go. That's fine. Normally, we give the hook. You're giving us the hook. I understand. Yeah. And that was the guy's reputation. But to his credit, His staff did call back and apologize. So now, Senator Schumer, we're still waiting for that call back. If you want to come on the air with us.
The best part about working for WCBS is the doors that it opened. As a reporter, I would walk in with a WCBS microphone. And during the blizzard of, was it 96, I believe, that blizzard, I took a ride with Rudy Giuliani in the what do they call it, the ice cream truck? Was that what they used to call the four-wheel drive vehicle? And out in the snow, and we went out to like a sanitation garage or something, and he was like, I came back and I filed my reports from City Hall. Peering behind the curtain and being able to see the way New York City works and to meet the people that pull the levers and to talk as we just did there now with the mayor. That's the best part about this job. It's really been wonderful.
Ever since you said Rudy Giuliani and ice cream truck, all I can think of is Mr. Softy pulling up, and there's Rudy Giuliani serving you a soft serve cone. And, yep, who knows? Who knows? I mean, we all need a second act. I know I do. Traffic time on WCBS. Tom O'Hanlon.
Well, thank you, Wayne. Man, I'm loving that old sounder. God, it's been 24 years for me, and that takes me back. We're looking at a debris spill on 440 on the northbound side, right around Charitz Road in Staten Island. Some of that on the northbound. Now, most of it was on the southbound side, but we're still seeing the delays as such. Now, on 287 in Westchester, watch out there. We have a collision, and that is on the westbound side, right around exit 9 at the Hutchinson River Parkway in White Plains. So it's not too bad now. The traffic is still moving. Just be careful as they clean that up. Now, in Connecticut, if you're heading up 95, we do have some stop and go now from Greenwich up into Coscob, and it's slowing down both ways through Stamford, southbound 95 into Norwalk, right around Route 7 in vicinity. Yeah, you do have that traffic. Now, the Merritt Parkway is looking a lot better than it was. Over to Long Island, we have plenty of traffic coming in on the LIE from Old Westbury in the northern state, busy into Queens. Up and down the Cross Island, we're hitting the brakes here and there. The LIE eastbound slows down from the Clearview over to the Cross Island. And going up the Van Wyck, well, it was pretty good earlier. Now it's not so much. If you're going northbound, it's slow. And the westbound belt, pretty busy going by JFK. Speaking of the belt in Brooklyn, well, if you are heading up to the Verrazano Bridge, you're doing that pretty slowly from Brighton Beach up into the bridge. And speaking of bridges, GWB about 25 into the city, 40 out from the Cross Bronx, 5 to 10 in at the Lincoln. And looks like the Holland just a few each way. I'm Tom O'Hanlon in the WCBS Traffic Center.
Shall we tell them about the weather? People come to the station for that, you know?
Yeah, sure. I got it right here because It sounds like you're unprepared again. Sunshine this afternoon, mixing with clouds. It's going to be a nice day. It already is beautiful. High. Can I say it? Can I sing it? 77. I won't do that. 77 degrees.
You know, one thing I learned is to keep the weather right in front of you in case you need to fill, and I have it right here in front of me, so I am prepared.
Yeah, then what's your excuse?
I was logging out of making sure I didn't save all my passwords because I won't be needing them anymore.
Oh, they'll be logging you out very shortly, don't worry.
Clear and comfortable, 63 for the city tonight, 50s in the burbs, and tomorrow is described as delightful with sunshine and some clouds in the high around 80.
Saturday and Sunday are going to be warm and sunny days. 83 on Saturday, 85 on Sunday, and then Monday, who cares?
You know, we want to talk about the WCBS reporters and what it's like on the street, carrying the microphone that says the call letters. And people will come up to you on the street and talk about the station. And Sean Adams is here, and I want to talk to Michael Lysak, former WCBS reporter, too, about this. You know what it's like to be out on the street, and we've been talking about this on our phone calls the last couple of days, people coming up and telling you about this radio station.
It happens all the time, and I'm sure it happened to you too. They see the mic flag and they love the station so much they can't wait to talk to you, and usually the first question I get, are you Paul Murnane?
Really?
I'd say you add about 6 inches in height, and yes, but and then they have questions. Tell me about this, tell me about that, and most times the people know more about the radio station than I do. They know the history. They know, names and what people do and where people went. And they just love it so much. And I just always found it fascinating. And then there's some people with whom I'm still in contact. I'll get a call. 4 o'clock in the morning out on a story. I'll get a text. Oh, so you're in the Bronx today, you know. Oh, you're doing this, you're doing that. And they would keep track. And then some of these people become resources because something's going on. You know, I know that person is in that neck of the woods. Let me reach out to them, and then you get information. You network.
Why do you think that is? Is something about the intimacy of radio? People feel like they're in with you in your car and whatever?
Because people are hearing you in their ear it is it's deeply personal and it's intimate, and they feel like that even if they never met you, they feel like they know you. You know, I mean, you're cracking people up here today, Wayne. People love that, and people think of you in that way. And so there is
wait
a
minute now. Not everybody. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Sean, I'm going to pivot. You gave me a perfect opportunity to play this. This is the guy. I played it earlier today, but this is when we used to have a call-in number. You could leave a voice message about whatever you liked about the radio station, and people never called when they liked something. They only called when they had an issue, and, well, somebody had a big issue with me.
Next message.
This is a former listener in Manhattan. We are so sick of Wayne Cabot. Every other ad, every other... Wayne Cabot. He must have an in with somebody at the top of CBS, but you're losing listeners because we're so goddamn sick of it. Wayne Cabot. Enough already.
End of message.
Well, listen, listen. You're such the mainstay of this radio station. You're the longest tenured anchorman on.
Well, that shook me. I got to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Oh my God! Because you want everyone to love you.
Right.
That's why we get into this. You need or want or whatever,
and then to get that message,
and to get the wait. And so it bothered me for a minute, and then I started laughing because it's hilarious.
It is hilarious.
And then I decided to come on the air with Steve Scott and do this.
Make it 40 degrees in Midtown now. Craig Allen says a few snow showers, maybe a coating of an inch or two overnight. His 5-day forecast in 3 minutes.
At 880 on your AM dial and live on your computer at WCBS880.com. When you need to know, we've got you covered.
Good evening, I'm Steve Scott.
And I'm Wayne Cabot.
Wayne Cabot. Enough already.
One man's opinion. Good to have you here. Coming up on WCBS.
I think that's your legacy. What can I do to make this worse?
Yeah, but the thing is, the guy got his wish.
Yeah.
He got his wish. Sir, you win.
You're such an icon, though, for this radio station. are you gonna sign us off on Sunday night?
As a matter of fact, I am. So it's not enough already. You're going to have one more dose of me at sometime, I guess, about a quarter before midnight, Sunday into Monday. I can't tell you. I'm probably going to cry just now thinking about it. But I've been entrusted, which is their mistake. I've been entrusted as the guy who's going to sign the radio station off, who's going to wrap it up after 100 years. 100 years.
Right.
Since 1924. And then at midnight, we wrap things up Sunday into Monday, and I'll be the guy giving out the last legal ID, and I'm going to have to record it because I know I can't get through it. But I got a couple of things I want to say, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be happy to know that no one's going to hear it because it's going to be in the middle of the night. So you won't have to hear it. But I got
a text from Wayne. He has something to say.
I got something to say, and I'm going to say it.
I'll be seeing those next week.
Speaking of something to say, Paul.
Yeah.
I got a note here from a guy named Nat Rosen.
Right.
Who said, and I'm quoting here, I often wondered how you even got away with some of the things you said, but each time that you'd show up on the air the next day. So I guess the bosses, quote, and sponsors could find it in their hearts to forgive you when you said things. And then he gives me specifics. After a commercial for the bacon-wrapped double bacon burger, you said, McDonald's is just giving out heart attacks. Following a story about recreational marijuana, you said, I held that hit in for the entire length of the story. And I also said, doing a little history thing, on this date in 1902, Levi Strauss died. He had no children, leaving no one to pass his genes to.
And I've learned over the years.
Joke.
I've learned over the years, if somebody said there was something outrageous I heard on the radio, I said, that was Cabot. I would say that's the way. That's the way anyone working with Wayne should. They should learn that phrase first.
Yeah, and you know what else people loved? The music, because we all connect on music.
Yeah.
I mean, Brigitte, you had Jimmy Fink on yesterday. Can you Brigitte, get on the mic for a second here, because
one of our radio heroes was on with Brigitte Quinn.
We always wanted to be rock and roll disc jockeys, never quite made it to FM, except for a joke. The rest of us have been on AM radio, and you had a chance to talk to our hero from WPLJ and now The Peak, Jimmy Fink, and we love Jimmy.
We love Jimmy, and he said that they kind of gave him the keys to the radio station and said, do freeform radio. And I said, Jimmy, you're the one. Like, whoever hears that anymore in radio? But something you always did so well was incorporating music into those 88, quote-unquote, 88 seconds of sound. I mean, those are masterpieces, Wayne. And, you know, yeah, what can I say? And you two... You know, you've been playing the clips of the great anchor teams. You're the great anchor team. Listening to you driving in, the hour-and-a-half drive would go by like that. Never knew what you were going to say. Always knew I'd get the news I needed to know to prep. But the way you just back and forth, it is seamless. And you hit all your time marks, too. I mean, today not, maybe, but that's fine.
Today was the miracle. Yes.
Yeah, today didn't matter. But no, but really, you guys are among the great teams here.
Thank you,
Bridget. We learned this listening to you and Jim and you and Jeff. We've listened, you know, that we learned listening from you guys and all of our radio predecessors in this chair, right?
You are fantastic.
We got to co-anchor together a few times when Jerry Garcia died.
Yes, and do you remember the time we killed off Eddie Vedder by mistake?
Yeah. I shouldn't laugh.
We were trying to be. We thought we were so young and so hip and knowledgeable about music, and that was when grunge was just hitting it, or at least we were just paying attention to it. And the one cryptic line came across the AP, and it said, "The lead singer of Nirvana is dead."
Right.
And I turned to you. I said, this is off the air. I said, is that Eddie Vedder? And you said, maybe, I think so.
Probably, yeah,
so
that
I
sounds good.
Confidently declared that Eddie Vedder was dead. He was not, still is not. And by the way,
we didn't have Google then in our defense.
We didn't have Google, but what amazed me was the phones lit up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Our listeners knew. Our listeners knew, and our listeners always knew.
Oh, they always know more than we do, you know. And one of the things that was very nice to hear is that you and I wouldn't varnish over what was the term, the rare mistakes someone said, and we would talk about, oh, sorry, what is this? Somebody said they remember saying frequently, what does this button do? And yeah, that's what it's like in here.
Well, Chris Quimby, who just walked in here. Chris, can you come on the mic? And Rob, we got to get you too.
Yeah.
Speaking of mistakes, no, I don't know. Hold on, I didn't say that right. If we made a mistake, I remember Chris Quimby. You were our manager a few years back, and wow, it's so good to see you, and you haven't aged a day somehow.
Oh, my gosh, thank you.
But you know that you encouraged us to go with those random moments. You said that the mistakes make you sound human, just don't do them too often.
I've always felt on that point for a news anchor is you can make a mistake, it's how you recover from it that matters. Now, but once again, you make them too often, not a good thing.
You were so supportive. All you guys have been so supportive, and women too. In fact, you were the only woman to be. You were. How many women ran news stations in the United States of America?
Wow, not many. There were some before me. There were some before me. Carol Brashears out in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Was a news director. I don't know if she was a program director.
I'm sure some since.
Yeah, there weren't that many, but you know, I just never thought of that.
Well, we never thought of it that way either, because you immediately took command and had respect, and it wasn't a matter of, they need to hire a woman or any kind of, you hear the talk today, the chatter going on, and it's repulsive in my opinion, but that was never a thought. You were always accepted.
Well, at WCBS 880, I've had a very long career, and I just take this moment to say this was the pinnacle of my career. I was only here for 5 years. The best 5 years of my life, and I love each and every one of you people.
Oh,
Chris, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for the memories.
Then there's Rob Sanchez. Then there's Paul, you used the word earlier, reprobate? Yeah. Well, here's the reprobate Rob Sanchez.
Is the profanity delay ramped up?
I got the dump button right over
okay,
here.
Good. Okay.
You were so much fun to work with and work for, Rob, because you were real, and I don't think you're from New York, but you might as well be from New York.
Yeah, I spent about 15 years here.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got New York in your blood because you got that acerbic attitude that a newsroom needs, and we loved it.
Well, thank you. I don't know what to say, so I'm going to shut up for once in my life.
Wow. Yeah, we are getting to that time. I mean, this is winding down, and it's we have a lump in our throat. But you know what we feel, and this is true. We feel such gratitude to have been a part of this place, and such respect for its tradition and for the listeners, and to ask someone to spend time with a radio station, or is to be a reporter and say, "Can I talk to you about a story?" I mean, that's remarkable that people would give their time in 2024. And I think that feeds into the feeling of gratitude, which is the overwhelming emotion that I have sitting here right now, I have to say.
Gratitude. Absolutely. It is such a privilege and a pleasure, and literally a pleasure. I mean, can I be honest with you? When that alarm goes off at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, it's not fun. It's never fun. Driving in here this morning when I had a nail through my tire and had to put air in my tire at 2 in the morning, that's not fun.
I had a
when
car
we
go
get
by
in
me.
here, it's great.
I had a car go by me on the West Side Highway going about 100 miles an hour, almost clipped my bumper, and I thought, well, I won't have to put up with that anymore, unless some lucrative radio gig comes through. I'm just saying.
All right. Wow. Okay. I know we're getting near the end here. Although, we're going to repeat this, and we've got some special programming that Dave Plotkin at WINS has put together because he's like a lot of people at WINS, they love WCBS.
So you're abandoning your plan to lock the studio door and keep going.
Oh, that's still a possibility, Paul, although that was only going to be if Brigitte brought in that bottle, which she didn't. So it's kind of dry in here.
Foiled again.
Yeah. But Dave Plotkin put together a 2-hour retrospective of CBS going back to when we signed on in 1924.
We have audio, at least one audio clip from the 1920s in this wonderfully assembled WCBS, well, the station that became WCBS retrospective. Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, I understand, is the first airing for that. And I came in at 3:40 this morning, and Dave was still here. We recorded the tracks for that yesterday, and he came down at 3:40 in the morning. He said, "It's all done." I said, "Have you been here since yesterday?" He said, "Yes," which shows you the dedication that people in this business have, and to this radio station in particular.
Can we give a shout out now to some of the people behind the scenes right now who have been through this very traumatic experience in the last week of learning that their jobs were going away?
Yeah.
Some people like us have been at this for a while, and it's a softer landing because we were nearing retirement, and you know, through our union SAG-AFTRA, well, we're going to be okay because of the very strong contract that they had. Its legacy.
Okay, in one sense. I don't know.
Well, right. Financially, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Not set, but okay.
We've never not had jobs in 40-year radio careers. This is our first experience well, no, you had that unpleasant Philadelphia experience, but that didn't last long.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm very aware that while we're having a party in here, it's tough for a lot of people out there. In the newsroom. Some of the younger people are so bright, they're going to be fine. And I mean that. They always hear that. You're going to be fine. No, really, you're going to be fine. You're bright. It's some of the mid-career people that are going to have to go out there and hump for a new job now in a very difficult market.
If you see WCBS on a resume and you're in a news organization, it is the best investment you can make to bring in, because the people who are here are the best.
So listen up right now as we tell you who is working behind the scenes right now at WCBS 880.
This is tough because it's usually the last thing we do before we wrap up our shift. It's usually like, oh, we're heading out the door. And literally in the certain way we are, aren't we, Wayne?
And here are the desk assistants who are working right now.
Sabrina Salovitz.
Jamila Jallo.
Eve Rosado.
Ashley Reed.
Michael Pardal.
Anthony Bosco.
Isanya Gonzalez.
Alma Bouvet.
Jake Angelo.
Maggie Leone.
Carla Marilis.
And we have the people that book the interviews you hear. We call them the bookers, and they work magic.
Oliver Sampson.
Heather Ron.
We could only afford 2 of them.
And here are our writers.
Tanya Hansen.
Chris Rausch. Martin Untroib.
And our production director,
Tom Fenn.
Bill Tynan, our creative services director. Oh, we have that one.
Bill Tynan.
He made sure he said his name. And our producers.
Laura Kala-Rausch.
Rivka Oppenheim.
Lou Zambrana.
Lisa T. Cherkovich.
You recognize that theme. playing behind us.
Yeah, this is one of the favorite things that we do. We play things off air during Morning Drive, and the Steve Carman News Is package is always one of our favorites. Will you call me next week and just play it down the phone line at me for old time's sake?
Listen, you can call Steve Carman. He's still a friend of ours. He has been for a while there, he would call us and yell at us for playing this stuff because he wanted his money. But then we won him over, Paul, and he said, you know what, play it. Now, but Steve Carman did all the jingles that were so popular in the 70s from, I Love New York to when you say Budweiser, you said it all. Nationwide is on your side. And this one, too. Wow.
Yeah, just so amazing. I think of one sound with this radio station, and this may have been what made it to me sound so important. You sat up, you paid attention, because when you heard that, you knew this is the news, this is something you need to know. And that was such a defining sound. And I'm so glad it's playing in my headphones now. And I had a chance in my years here to talk over that wonderful production.
Paul Murnane has been an experience working with you.
Thank you. How kind.
A wonderful experience working with you.
I feel the same.
And lose my address.
I am blocking you now on social media and blocking you on my cell phone. I think that speaks to the fun we have had. It's kind of a bro culture that goes on in these studios, and the last couple of years that I have had in this business, as I said earlier, as the resources frankly have been shrinking, as it has been kind of seemingly harder to do what we do, I felt more comfortable. I have felt more confident. And also that is not just because of the reality of the business, Wayne. It's because I've had a chance to work with you in this anchor chair now for 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And can we just get a little out there from all the people who are assembled and holding up their phones?
Yeah.
A little round of applause for all of us.
Doesn't that tell you? Doesn't that sound tell you about the community of WCBS? These are all current and former employees in the room. It's wonderful.
Nat Rosen said, we'll miss the news and objective insights. We'll miss your dulcet tones and acerbic wit. He's talking to both of us, Paul. Relax. I
was going to say, where's my credit?
Miss your familiar and friendly voice, softening the often harsh news of the day. Most of all, I'll miss my daily dose of Wayne and Murnane in the morning. Hey, why didn't we think of calling ourselves Wayne and Murnane in the morning?
I think the marketing people are in for another day or so. We should send a memo.
Now, Nat says he will listen to our Odyssey cousins at 1010 Wins, but it just won't be the same, he says. Thanks for all that you did. All the best to you. And glad you got a bunch of paid time off before the axe fell. Well, that's true. Yeah.
What can we say here at the end? But thank you so much. Thank you, WCBS, current and past employees. Thank you for Odyssey for having the trust in us to say goodbye as we have been.
And one last time, we're going to let this play in the clear as we say, see you next time.
When you need to know why, when it matters most. This is WCBS 880 News.
Okay, everybody, on three, we're going to give the legal ID. 1, 2, 3.
WCBS New York.
I love it. I love it that we're doing different versions of it. Fantastic.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Steve Kathan. Political history will unfold tonight when Vice President Kamala Harris accepts the Democratic presidential nomination. Michael Tyler is with her campaign.